kita bertekad ya untuk menjadi rakan dagang yang boleh dipercayai. Ya, Malaysia sentiasa bersikap terbuka kepada perdagangan dan juga kepada pelaburan. Kami komited kepada kesemua rakan utama kita, termasuklah negara seperti China, Amerika Syarikat dan negara-negara ASEAN yang lain. Kedua, kerajaan tak boleh dengar lah. Sorry. Okey. Alright, sorry. Layout today pun weird to me. Okey, sekali lagi saya nak sebut sekali lagi Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Malaysia Madani dan juga selamat Hari Raya. Terima kasih kepada rakan-rakan media yang sudi hadir di sidang media khas mengenai Tarif Amerika Syarikat. Pada hari ini bersama-sama saya Yang Berhormat Liu Chintong, Timbalan Menteri MITI dan juga KSU dan TKSU dan juga ketua-ketua agensi di bawah MITI. Pertama sekali saya ingin menekankan ya bahawa Malaysia kita bertekad untuk menjadi rakan dagang yang boleh dipercayai. Malaysia sentiasa bersikap terbuka kepada semua rakan dagang kita, terutamanya rakan-rakan dagang yang besar dan juga rakan-rakan pelabur kita yang besar seperti Amerika Syarikat, China, ASEAN dan yang lain. Kedua, kerajaan menafikan dakwaan ya bahawa Malaysia telah mengenakan tarif 47% ke atas import Amerika Syarikat ke Malaysia. Kita tidak bersetuju dengan asas pengiraan tarif ini dan sedang mendapatkan penjelasan mengenai pengiraan tersebut. Saya pun baru habis selesai mesyuarat dengan Ambassador Amerika Syarikat dengan pasukan daripada Embassy juga bersama-sama dengan rakan saya. Kita telah cuba mendapatkan penjelasan mengenai pengiraan tersebut. Asas pengiraan kurang tepat ini telah mengakibatkan Malaysia dikenakan tarif timbal balas pada kadar 24%. Ketiga, Malaysia komited sepenuhnya untuk mencapai solusi yang akan mengekalkan akses pasaran, menarik pelaburan domestik dan juga pelaburan asing yang berterusan dan menyokong kesejahteraan pekerja dan perniagaan Malaysia. Jadi sehubungan itu buat masa ini Malaysia tidak akan mengambil sebarang tindakan timbal balas. Keempat, kerajaan telah pun umumkan ya bahawa pertumbuhan KDNK 2025 sebanyak 4.5% hingga 5.5% akan dikaji semula ya. Ini akan berdasarkan laporan penilaian impak yang lebih menyeluruh. Buat masa ini kerajaan menjangkakan pertumbuhan ekonomi akan berterusan, tapi perbelanjaan kita daripada segi fundamental ekonomi kita still strong ya. Seterusnya, izinkan saya berkongsi mengenai langkah-langkah yang sedang dan akan diambil oleh kerajaan dan MITI dalam menangani impak tarif ini. Jadi langkah pertama, Pusat Tindakan Geoekonomi Nasional ya, NGCC yang dipengerusikan oleh Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri telah pun diaktifkan. MITI sedang membuat kajian impak kepada sektor-sektor ekspor utama ke Amerika Syarikat dan NGCC akan mempertimbangkan dapatan dan kajian tersebut semasa mesyuaratnya seterusnya dalam masa terdekat. Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri telah bersetuju untuk mempengerusikan mesyuarat NGCC yang kedua pada hari Isnin minggu depan. Langkah yang kedua, MITI sendiri akan membangunkan satu pasukan petugas ya, satu task force bagi mengumpul maklum balas dari semua pihak berkepentingan. Ini untuk memastikan ekspor dan pelaburan Malaysia tidak terkesan teruk akibat tindakan unilateral Amerika Syarikat. Esok MITI akan berjumpa dengan wakil badan-badan industri dan persatuan pengeksport. MITI juga akan terlibat dengan urus dengan kementerian dan agensi berkaitan ya, seperti Kementerian Kewangan, Negara, MIDA, Matrid, DOSEM dan sebagainya. MITI akan mengambil pendekatan menyeluruh dalam mempertimbangkan pelbagai pilihan yang ada ya. Dan ketiga, di peringkat ASEAN, Menteri-Menteri Ekonomi akan bermesyuarat khas pada 10 April ini yang dipengerusikan oleh Malaysia, oleh saya sendiri. Kita akan membincangkan implikasi tarif Amerika Syarikat ke atas aliran perdagangan dan pelaburan serantau, kestabilan makroekonomik dan juga respons yang bersepadu daripada ASEAN. Selepas itu, pemimpin ASEAN akan bertemu untuk membincangkan hala tuju ASEAN bagi menangani dan mengurangkan potensi gangguan kepada perdagangan serantau, rantai yang berkala juga, dan aliran pelaburan ke rantau ini. Keempat, pelibatan strategik peringkat tinggi dan dengan Amerika Syarikat akan diteruskan. Perjanjian Rangka Kerja Perdagangan dan Pelaburan Malaysia Amerika Syarikat ataupun TIFA akan dimanfaatkan. Jadi MITI akan mempertimbangkan untuk mengadakan perjanjian perlindungan teknologi untuk melindungi ekspor semikonduktor dan aero angkasa Malaysia. Pengecualian sektor akan dirundingkan, dan seperti saya sebut pagi ini, saya bertemu juga dengan Duta Besar Amerika Syarikat dan rundingan seterusnya akan dibuat. Langkah kelima adalah dari segi pasaran ekspor kita sendiri. Sejak beberapa tahun yang lalu, Madrid sudah pun mula mempelbagaikan dan meluaskan pasaran ekspor Malaysia. Ini termasuk pasaran Timur Tengah, Afrika dan Amerika Selatan. Selain itu, MITI juga akan meningkatkan penggunaan kesemua FTA kita, Perjanjian Perdagangan Bebas. Usaha lain berkenaan FTA ini termasuklah SIPA dengan UAE, ini Perjanjian Perkongsian Ekonomi Komprehensif, penyambungan semula rundingan FTA bersama dengan EU, rundingan FTA dengan Korea Selatan. Kita juga menaikkan taraf Perjanjian Perdagangan Barangan ASEAN ataupun A3 dan rundingan Malaysia European Free Trade Association EFTA, ini bersama dengan Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway dan Switzerland, our partnership agreement with them. Seterusnya, kita perlu berterus terang mengenai impak langsung cabaran ini adalah dari segi pertumbuhan KDNK Malaysia pada tahun ini dan mungkin tahun-tahun akan datang. Sebagai salah satu rakan dagang terbesar Amerika Syarikat di ASEAN dan juga salah satu destinasi utama pelabur asing dari Amerika Syarikat, pelaksanaan tarif pasti akan memberi kesan jangka pertengahan hingga jangka panjang. Kesan ini jangka quite broad base, meluas, kerana tarif juga telah dikenakan ke atas hampir setiap rakan dagang dan rakan sumber pelaburan Malaysia. Sekiranya lebih banyak negara melaksanakan tarif timbal balas, perang perdagangan di seluruh dunia bakal menggugat pertumbuhan ekonomi global. Antara impak langsung dan juga tidak langsung yang lain, contohnya setengah ekspor Malaysia akan lebih kompetitif dalam pasaran global kerana berbanding beberapa negara yang dikenakan tarif lebih tinggi dari Malaysia. Kadar 24% ini bolehlah dianggap lebih rendah ataupun sederhana. Bagi pengimport dan syarikat Amerika Syarikat mencari input atau barangan perantaraan. In fact, ekspor minyak sawit Malaysia contohnya tapi dijangka permintaan juga beralih ke Malaysia. Ya. Bila ini berlaku, hasil akan berkurangan dan pekerjaan dalam sektor ekspor akan terkesan. Akibat apabila permintaan ini berkurangan, pelaburan dan perbelanjaan juga akan berkurangan. Jadi kesemua faktor ini akan menyebabkan penurunan dalam KDNK dunia dan juga KDNK Malaysia. Jika pelbagai negara menghadapi situasi yang sama, pertumbuhan global ini akan melembab. Penurunan permintaan dari Amerika Syarikat akibat tarif timbal bala juga boleh mengakibatkan industri dan pasaran kita berdepan dengan lembakan, ya, dengan dumping barangan import dari negara lain yang mempunyai lebihan kapasiti. Ini akan meningkatkan persaingan dengan pengeluar-pengeluar tempatan. Jadi buat masa ini ada pengecualian, beberapa pengecualian melindungi sektor semikonduktor. Ini adalah kategori ekspor yang terbesar Malaysia ke Amerika Syarikat. Ada bahan mineral kritikal, pharmaceutical dan juga beberapa produk berkaitan tenaga juga dikecualikan. Tetapi banyak sektor lain akan terjejas seperti mesin dan peralatan, perabot, getah dan plastik. Dari segi pelaburan yang diluluskan, maklum balas awal dari pelabur asing dan domestik, pertamanya ada yang menyatakan buat masa ini terlalu awal untuk menilai impak kepada operasi masing-masing sehinggalah tarif ini dilaksanakan pada 9 April ini. Beberapa pelabur berkongsi bahawa rantaian bekalan mereka akan terkesan, terutama dari segi kontrak manufacturing. Dan ada juga pelabur Malaysia yang sedang memperlahankan pelan pengembangan perniagaan masing-masing dan mula berjimat sambil memfokus kepada perluasan pasaran di negara-negara lain, contohnya China, India dan ASEAN. Jadi kita sebagai penutup, Kerajaan Madani berazam untuk mengatasi cabaran ini dan MITI ingin menjemput semua sektor industri, Dewan Industri dan Persatuan untuk bekerjasama dengan kami dalam mencari penyelesaian yang terbaik untuk negara kita. Walau apapun, saya ingin memberi keyakinan kepada pihak industri dan kepada rakyat bahawa MITI akan berusaha sedaya upaya untuk memastikan agar kepentingan Malaysia sentiasa terpelihara. Yang penting adalah kesejahteraan rakyat dan juga sektor perniagaan dan ekspor kita. So in English, firstly I would like to stress that Malaysia aims to continue being a reliable trading partner. We want to be open to trade, open to investment, while venturing or valuing all economic partnerships, including our ties with our traditional partners, the United States, China, ASEAN and the rest. Especially we are very much an open economy. Secondly, the government categorically denies the claim that Malaysia has imposed 47% tariff on US imports into Malaysia. We don't agree with the basis for calculating this tariff and we are seeking clarification. In fact, this morning the Ambassador of the United States came to MITI and we seek clarification on how this number was derived. This inaccurate basis for calculation has resulted in Malaysia being imposed this retaliatory tariff of 24%. Third, we are fully committed to securing a favourable resolution that preserves market access, attracts continued foreign investments and supports the well-being of Malaysian workers and businesses. So on that note, for now, Malaysia will not take any retaliatory action. Fourth, the government has announced that the 2025 GDP growth of 4.5% to 5.5% will be reviewed. This will be based on a more comprehensive impact. So for now, the government expects economic growth to continue, albeit at a slower rate. Our household spending is resilient. I think the country's domestic investment is also strong. Revenue such as tourism is also strong. But we must make sure that we double down on the master plans that we have announced, master plans like NIMP, NETR, etc. So, by the government and MITI in addressing the impact of these tariffs. So measure number one, we have activated the National Geo-Economic Command Center or NGCC. MITI is currently doing a sectoral impact study on key exports to the US. This will be presented to the NGCC. The Prime Minister has agreed to chair the next meeting this coming Monday and will be considering the findings of the impact study. Measure number two, MITI has set up a task force on managing US tariffs to gather inputs and feedback from key stakeholders. So the members of this task force will also be members from the private sector. This is to minimize the impact of the unilateral US action on our exports and investments. And tomorrow, MITI will be meeting representatives of industries, from chambers and export companies, export associations. And MITI will also engage all the relevant ministries and agencies, like Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economy, Bank Negara, etc. So we will leave no stone unturned and in considering all options to ensure the well-being of our industries, our businesses and our people. Third measure, at the ASEAN level, I will chair a special ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting on the 10th of April. We will discuss the broader implication of the US tariff measures on regional trade and investment. So we're looking at the investment flow, macroeconomic stability, and ASEAN's coordinated response to this tariff issue. Subsequently, the ASEAN leaders will meet to discuss ASEAN member states' way forward and to mitigate potential disruptions to regional trade, supply chain networks, as well as cross-border investments. And measure number four, in terms of strategic high-level engagement with the US, this will continue. We will leverage on the Malaysia-US Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, or TIFA, and MITI will also consider the establishment of a tax safeguard agreement to protect our semiconductor and aerospace exports. Sectoral exemptions will be negotiated, and as I mentioned this morning, we have met the US Ambassador and we will continue negotiating with the US. The fifth measure is on our own export markets. Martrade this year, it has proactively diversified and expanded Malaysia's export markets to regions such as Middle East, Africa and South America. So effort at MITI's policy level includes increased utilization of our existing FTAs as well as other FTAs that are being initiated. For example, the conclusion or the entry into force of SEPA with the UAE, resumption of FTA with EU, FTA negotiation with South Korea, upgrading of our ATIGA, which is our ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement, and negotiations on the Malaysia-European Free Trade Association, EFTA, Economic Partnership Agreement. So we are one of the largest trading partners of the US in ASEAN as well, and also one of the major recipients of US-based foreign investments. So we must therefore acknowledge that there will be mid to long-term impact. This impact will be challenging, it will be broad-based, mainly because the tariffs have also been levied on almost every other trade and investment partner of Malaysia. So should many countries retaliate, the global economic fallout of a worldwide trade war will be very serious. So this impact, as I mentioned, is expected to be broad-based, as tariffs have also been imposed on almost every trading partner and investment source partner of Malaysia. So there may be some positive and negative impact from the 24% tariff. I think there are some positive, some negative, but for now, critical sectors, for example, critical mineral, pharmaceutical, semiconductors, and certain energy-related products are temporarily exempted from the new tariff measures, although they may be subject to further trade scrutiny or tariff actions in future. And semiconductor is Malaysia's largest export category to the US, but many other sectors will be hit, such as machinery and equipment, furniture, rubber, and plastic. So in terms of approved investments, initial feedback from foreign and domestic investors, number one, some have stated that for now it's too early to assess the impact on their respective operations until the tariffs come into force, some of them mainly on April the 9th. Several investors have shared that their supply chains will be affected, especially in terms of contract manufacturing, and some Malaysian investors are slowing down their business expansion plans and starting to conserve cash while focusing on market expansion in other markets, for example, China, India, ASEAN. So in closing, the Madani government is determined to overcome this challenge, and MITI seeks the cooperation of all industry sectors, industry chambers and associations to work with us on finding the best solution moving forward. So in any event, I would like to reassure the industry that MITI will do its utmost to ensure that Malaysia's interests are always protected. What is important is the well-being of the people and our business and export sectors. Thank you. So I open the floor to questions. Yes.
Pertama yang Tuan Sri nak tanya, kalau bukan 47%, berapa tax yang kita kenakan pada ekspor US? Dan keduanya, kalau mengikut hak kita di bawah WTO, sekiranya kita percaya mereka breach prinsipal di bawah WTO, kita kalau tak nak retaliatory pun ada dispute settlement ataupun tariff binding, adakah kita juga akan melihat ke arah itu?
Ya. Pada masa ini kalau kita lihat dari segi tarif yang yang kita tak setuju 24, the actual tarif applied, the average tarif applied kepada kita is called the simple average MFN applied rate is at 5.6%, 5.6%. So that is where we are disputing that number. Dari segi WTO, yes, there is the mechanism, the DSM, the dispute settlement mechanism. Yes, that is one avenue which we can. In practice, DSM is not really not functioning anymore with the lack of the appellate body in place. Again, this is a matter that we've been raising in many of the WTO meetings we have attended. The last one being MC13 in Abu Dhabi. But having said that, we believe that the first step is negotiate, right? I think that avenue to use the DSM, the dispute settlement mechanism, is there, but that should be used not at this stage of negotiations. Yes.
Norman here from Nikkei. What probably can you share about upcoming meeting on Thursday? What will be your proposal for the ASEAN's coordinated response to US tariffs? And then when is the next ASEAN leaders meeting? And then will you be making an early trip to US to meet your counterpart in a negotiation on this emissions?
Okay. I'll answer the last question first. We have asked for our team to engage the US team. We have a team in MITI office in Washington. We also have our MITI office in Geneva, right? So they are already meeting their counterparts. But at the same time, we have officially written to USTR and to the Department of Commerce for myself to travel to the US to meet the representative from the US. And we hope that with an engagement with the US will happen before end of the month. But at the same time, it's important that we remain calm, that we continue to engage even from where we are here in Malaysia, and our team, respective team, they are based in the US. So your questions regarding
the coordinated response from ASEAN?
Yes, coordinated response from ASEAN. Yeah, that's on the 10th of April, where we will be discussing the impact on ASEAN and also to see what are the areas in common that Malaysia and the rest are facing when it comes to the tariff decision by the US. As you know, countries in ASEAN all were imposed different level of tariffs. Some may argue that some got worse than others in terms of the tariff rates. So it is not easy to then agree on something that unanimously, but there will be areas that we can agree on. And more importantly, we must also look at opportunities for ASEAN itself to work closer together. As I've mentioned in various platforms, the trade within ASEAN itself is very low, below 25%. So we need to look at how we can increase this, and also look at trade between ASEAN and other economic blocs and other countries that have economic cooperation and collaboration with ASEAN. And on your question, when is the next meeting for the leaders? I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs is working on that, but it will definitely happen after the 10th of April. We are going to work to come up with a consensus view on how do we engage and how do we work together as a bloc as well. Yes.
My question is from the article released by MITI last week. We see that there is some causes explained in the article. Many American companies operate in Malaysia for dozens of years. In the article, it is said that it is because of those American companies cause the trade surplus. So could you give introduction about this? So how big portion of the trade surplus caused by the American companies operate locally dozens years? And the other question is about the most of the ASEAN country be at the tariff and ranking in the front list of the Americans list. But we noticed that Singapore only has 10% tariff add. So compared to Singapore, I think Singapore is also a trade country similar to Malaysia. So what's the difference caused this gap? And what do you think of most of ASEAN country be added very high tariff, because most of the ASEAN country actually are developing country?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the question is number one, starting from the last question before the first question. I think the second question is about why US imposed a lower tariff on Singapore. So I think that question you should ask the US. But from our understanding, based on the calculation of the formula that as we understand it, it is not really a reflection of tariff reflection of trade deficit. So as you know, and as you correctly stated, the tariff deficit between Malaysia and US in favor of Malaysia. We have a trade surplus. Is about 25 billion US dollars. Whereas, as you know, Singapore do not have such trade surplus with the US, and therefore they have been given that lower rate. And that is our understanding based on the formula, right? We have all been shared with. So that's, I think, the reason. And similarly, if we look at Vietnam, for example, the reason why they have been imposed a higher tariff is because they have a much larger trade surplus compared to Malaysia. So on the question about Malaysian exporters being mainly US companies to the US, that is true. We are finalizing the numbers. Under the announcement, under Annex 2 is listed all the HS code or the tariff code for all the export items to the US. For now, as you know, Malaysia, in terms of exports, close to 60% of our exports is in the E&E sector. And if you break the E&E sector into two part of it, 60%, there's E&E semiconductor and E&E non-semiconductor. And out of the 60% of E&E, half of that, which is 30%, are E&E semiconductor, which is exempted. The other 30% are E&E not semiconductor, which is not exempted. So only 30% of our exports to the US are exempted, right, based on the current tariff. If you look at the next two. Who are the companies? Yes, mainly US companies exporting, because US companies that are exporting to the US from Malaysia are exporting intermediate goods. The finished goods are being produced in the US. But having said that, as there always spillover when investments are made in Malaysia, many Malaysian companies, be it SME or mid-tier companies or large local companies, are also suppliers to the US companies based in Malaysia. So we have to look at the impact to the supply chain and how it impacts Malaysian industries and Malaysian companies. So it's all, there is a knock-on effect to any decisions that also affect not just US companies, but also will affect all the companies that are involved in that supply chain to the US companies. Yes.
Hi, Amanda.
Amanda, you want to give her?
Okay, so Amanda from TV3. Okay, ada dua question. Satu tu, bagaimana naratif rundingan Malaysia dan US ketika ini, sebab obviously I rasa yang pihak Malaysia tu dah ada tengok pengiraan US, sebab 47% dengan 5.6% tu banyaklah perbezaan dia, agak ketara. So jadi mungkin Tengku boleh bagi naratif sikit mengenai bila tengok yang pengiraan mereka tu 47%, apa yang silap tu, apa yang menjadi isunya, and then adakah kemungkinan tarif tu akan diturunkan. And nombor dua tu, tadi bila dalam kenyataan dalam English tu, Tengku kata pasal double down METR dengan NIME. So mungkin adakah KPI tu akan diturunkan, saran dia tu macam mana? Thank you.
Ya, yang saya masukkan double down is kita kena perlu memberi lebih fokus kepada plan-plan yang sudah kita umumkan, terutamanya plan perindustrian baru, plan peralihan tenaga, kerana kita perlu memastikan dalam situasi sebegini kita perlu memperkukuhkan lagi ya kedudukan ekonomi negara kita melalui plan-plan yang memperkukuhkan industri kita. Yeah, so we need to be competitive given the challenges that we're facing in the future, because kalau kita lihat plan-plan yang kita telah umumkan ini, semuanya ini untuk memperkukuhkan lagi industri kita dan ekosistem industri kita. Dan dari segi apa yang disebut tadi, naratif perundingan, memanglah kita sedang memperhalusi impaknya dahulu, dan pada masa yang sama dia ada isu yang tarif dan ada isu yang non tarif ya. Kerana kita kena lihat dia dengan lebih menyeluruh, apakah isu-isu tarif ini dan apakah isu-isu yang non tarif barrier ini yang kita boleh bertimbangkan untuk kita bangkitkan dalam perundingan kita. Tapi yang pentingnya ialah apa-apa pun keputusan kerajaan, kita kena pastikan syarikat-syarikat kita, ekonomi kita, rakyat kita tidak terkesanlah dengan apa yang kita runding dengan Amerika Syarikat. Kita lihat bahawa daripada segi calculation seperti yang saya sebut tadi, ini adalah calculation yang berdasarkan defisit perdagangan kita di antara kita dengan Amerika Syarikat, bukan berdasarkan tarif yang reciprocal, ya, tarif. Dan pada masa yang sama dengan 47% itu dikali 0.52 ataupun half of that kali bagi kedua bagi by divide by 2 dapat kepada 24%. Dan oleh itu kita kena menunjukkan bahawa Malaysia dan pada masa yang sama dari segi defisit ini semakin menurun, ya. Kalau kita lihat pada tahun 2021, contohnya defisit kita dengan Amerika Syarikat ada hampir lebih 45 bilion, hampir 45 bilion US dollar, dan pada masa ini defisit itu turun kepada 25 bilion US dollar. Jadi menunjukkan banyak penurunan dari segi defisit. So I think on the details, apa yang kita nak bincangkan ialah kita nak pastikan menunjukkan apa-apa pun naratif yang kita keluarkan mestilah menunjukkan win-win kalau boleh, ya. Tak bolehlah satu pihak saja yang menang dalam rundingan. Please.
Hi, I'm Yogika from BFM. I have two questions at the stream. My first one is on a recent study by MICCI. They said that about 50,000 jobs are at risk in Malaysia are at risk due to this tariff increase. So has MITI actually considered this study, and do you agree that jobs are at risk because of this? And also my second question is MITI considering other bilateral agreements like you mentioned just now, and also the alignment of supply chains due to this tariff increase?
Yeah. So the report by MICCI, we read the statement made by MICCI. I believe my colleagues, for example, the Deputy Secretary has already called them to ask for clarification, trying to understand where and how did they arrive at the 50,000 figures. For us, we cannot deny the fact that the global economic slowdown will have an impact on Malaysia. Malaysia, we are living on the same planet as the rest of the world. So if there is an impact to global growth, Malaysia will have also a negative impact to Malaysia. And looking at the current of tariff that are being imposed, definitely industries and companies will be affected, and jobs will therefore be affected. What are the number of jobs affected and which companies, which industries, that analysis is being done now, but done today, and we hope to present to the committee chaired by PM next week, and there I think from there we can have a better view and feel of the number. So if you can wait for a while and let us look at those numbers, more and more impact studies will be done, and there will be different scenarios that we have to assume as well, right? And the other question is on. Yes. Yes, we will definitely, as I mentioned, apart from continuing our discussion with various countries on bilateral agreements, we are also working with various economic blocs like EU on multilateral agreements like FTA with the EU. At the same time, as we in ASEAN as well, we are going to upgrade our ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement. We are looking at the Digital Economic Framework Agreement. So all this has to be accelerated because you have to remember the trade with the US is around 18% for Malaysia. So we still have like more than 80% trade with the rest of the world. Similarly for export, when you talk about E&E exports, we export about close to 30% of our E&E to the US, less than about 28%, and the rest of our E&E sector actually export to the rest of the world. So it's important, as you correctly stated, to continue our engagement with our other trading partners through various platforms that we already have, and creating new platforms to ensure a smoother collaboration when it comes to trade and investment. Can we get yeah, please.
I want to check, how will this affect the foreign investors, particularly American ones, that have already expressed or committed to invest here over the next 2 years? And how will this affect MITI's investment target for 25 and beyond?
Yeah. There will be an impact on investments. We cannot deny the fact in global investment as well. I think global FDI will see a decline. That is our assumption. We are still waiting for the figures from other major global agencies. But for our side, MIDA have done a lot of engagement with the American companies based here. In fact, I myself have met the US Malaysian chambers, and then our MIDA team also met US ASEAN chambers, and I've met various companies. In fact, a few days last week, Intel also had a discussion with the Prime Minister himself. MITI was present in that meeting. There will be concerns by many US companies operating all over the world, including Malaysia. So we are, like I said, it's still preliminary to gauge the actual impact, and to quantify it even more difficult at this point in time. But what's important is for us to start assessing and find ways to mitigate this. We are engaging the American companies who are obviously also have their base in Washington, HQ in Washington. They have their government relations team in Washington, and see how we can position Malaysia as a country that is a very important and integral part of the supply chain, even to the US. As I mentioned just now, our export to US is actually on intermediate products, not the end products. So the end products will be done in the US, most of it, and it come back to Malaysia. We are actually consuming, and that's how we see the deficit actually declining, because Malaysians are in line with our increase in GNI per capita, GDP per capita. We are consuming more stuff also from the US. But all this we have to quantify, and in fact, but nevertheless, I cannot deny the fact that we are concerned, right? Because when you talk to companies, naturally they will have to start relook at some of the growth policy, because when you invest, you want to see the demand side, right? And if the global demand is expected to slow down, naturally there is a positive correlation to investment slowing down as well.
MITI targets?
Yeah, MITI targets, we have to, like the GDP target, we have to review. It's unfair for me to have the same target. MIDA will not be too happy. But as you know, every time we do a target for trade and investment, we look at the GDP numbers as well, because there is a correlation between trade and investment to the growth of the economy for Malaysia. Yes. What was it?
Something about Malaysia is that
Yeah.
you mentioned that the palm oil export demand will be more competitive, and the demand will shift to Malaysia. So what is MITI's action to increase this demand?
Yeah. So that one we will work closely with the relevant ministry, in this case KPK. This is what the analysts are saying. We have not engaged them directly because at the end of the day, dia punya demand. Yang penting is the demand. If the global demand goes down, even if you have better pricing, but the demands go down, then the export will be less. So we need to calculate betul-betul. Of course, these are the analysis done by some of the industry players. We have yet to confirm this. But logically, it's true lah, right? We can see that if you look at the numbers, of course, the buyers in the US will buy from a country that's exporting where the tariff is lower. But having said that, just to share with you, the export to US in terms of palm oil, Malaysia is quite small for now. And we are exporting more downstream products rather than just crude palm oil. Yes?
After the 2nd April Trump's announcement, more tariff on America. So what's Malaysia's consideration on this? And what do you think of China has already added 34% tariff on America? What will be the impact to the economy?
Yeah. So yes, so far as from my understanding, there's no retaliatory tariff being imposed by countries of our members of ASEAN. And as I said, we have a 10th of April, we have a discussion. We'll discuss with them, with my colleagues on the next step forward. I think two wrongs don't make a right. And it's important that we remain calm because anything that will result in trade war is not for the benefit of the global economy. When it comes to China, I think it's important that we also recognize that whatever tariff that's imposed by the US, there will be secondary effects. There will be trade diversion and there will be indirect impact. And today we talk a lot about direct impacts, but there will be indirect impacts. So again, that's being assessed, right? Naturally, the expectation is that all this supply will go to somewhere, right? If the supply to US is affected. Similarly, retaliatory tariff by not just China, but even EU, for example, or Canada and other countries, there will be indirect effect on the supply chain, and the costs will go up, and there will also impact on trade diversion, which again we are monitoring, and we will come back once we have time to analyze those trade flows and the impact to supply chains. Yeah.
Actually here from this. There are countries like Vietnam who have proposed to zero tariff American products. What is Malaysia's plan? Do you have any plans, policies to do similarly the same? And you say that there is an ASEAN meeting this Thursday, right? So you said that about having a consensus together to discuss, how do you tackle this tariff? Are you and the whole ASEAN looking to also, what kind of policies are you looking at? Is it also to zero tariff all American products?
Yeah. Okay, on ASEAN, again, I don't want to preempt what will be discussed in ASEAN meeting, but as you are well aware, the spirit of ASEAN is always based on consensus, right? We believe in the strength of ASEAN being strong when we all agree to a common cause, and that's why we always talk about the importance of ASEAN's centrality. As such, I think I will report back to you after the meeting on what I think we can agree on. For Malaysia, yes, we see some other countries, you mentioned Vietnam, have suggested a zero tariff. For Malaysia, as I said, even products that are exported to the US, the tariff rate is around 3%, right, on average. It's very small, so there's not much room to work there anyway, right? And so therefore, we have to look at it more holistically, and we will discuss internally and get approval and mandate from the cabinet on what is the best way approach as when we have confirmed the time to go to meet my counterparts in the US.
Seiichi Oshima from GG Press,
Yes.
Japanese news agency.
Yes.
As for the options, is it too early to discuss about the foreign exchange rate adjustment or a purchase of a very long U.S. Treasury bond?
Yeah, I think that one you have to pose that question to the Central Bank and Ministry of Finance. For us, as I mentioned, we are still at a stage where we are looking at the numbers that are impacting our trade and investment numbers, which will then impact our export numbers, impact our industries, the supply chain. So on currency rates, I think you have to please ask the central bank because they will then look at the impact to the GDP. They will look at the impact to inflation. I mean, what are the monetary policy, and then Ministry of Finance will then look at the fiscal policy that is needed to support any mitigation measures that is required. Okay, so can we ask get other chance to people to ask? Boleh. Soalan lain. Okay. Oh,
Azri dari Pendapat TV.
Yes.
Mengenai isu kebakaran di Putrajaya, kita tahu penutupan gas di kawasan jajaran industri. So far adakah MITI menerima laporan mengenai impact terhadap industri yang terlibat?
Ya, kita dapat laporan dan kita sedang mendengar isu-isu yang telah dibangkitkan. Saya sendiri pun dapat laporan juga. Dan we are addressing it. Semua saya difahamkan pada baru-baru semalam tak Israf dan Tuan Hanafi dah mula beroperasi. So banyak kilang-kilang yang terkesan telah dapat bermula semula.
200 kilang.
200 kilang semua dah most of them started back kan.
Ada sebahagiannya.
Sebahagian dah mula balik lah. But we are aware. We are working closely with Petronas.
Just to hope
Yeah, last.
American side has already communicated with Malaysia has already communicated contact with American side. So what's the target of the negotiation for come to the base tariff 10% or even more? What's the Malaysia's target for negotiation with American side?
We don't have a target yet. As I said, we will discuss this once we get the mandate from the Prime Minister and from the Cabinet, we will then negotiate. Of course, what we can say is we will try and get a better deal from what we have today, but at the same time it has to be a deal that is a win-win for both. Thank you. Yes.
Ada kemungkinan tak syarikat kilang pindah ke Malaysia sebab tadi kita rendah banyak?
Ya, ada kemungkinan. Soalannya ada tak kemungkinan di mana kerana tarif kita lebih rendah berbanding dengan setengah negara itu, adakah mereka akan berpindah ke negara Malaysia? Kita ada simulasi yang menunjukkan mungkin ada. Tapi pada masa sama, seperti yang saya sebut tadi, dari segi pelaburan ini, sebelum mereka nak melabur, dia akan melihat juga daripada isu permintaan. Jadi kalau permintaan dunia terkesan, mungkin pelaburan itu pun terkesan. Pada masa yang sama, it is important that we also take note. Ya, kalau kita nak dah banyak syarikat datang ke Malaysia dan ekspor balik kepada Amerika Syarikat, defisit kita akan lebih besar. So this is something that we will look at lah. But I think your observation tadi betul. Nampaknya ada pertanyaan sama ada kita akan dapat, tapi this is not a long term solution lah. Yeah, it's more like
Baiklah, terima kasih YB Menteri.
Terima kasih. Oh, terima kasih. Thank you.
Terima kasih YB Menteri.
Jangan tunggu you masuk.
Bersedia menjawab soalan-soalan rakan-rakan media kita, dan terima kasih kepada semua rakan-rakan media di atas soalan-soalan anda. Dengan itu, maka berakhirlah sidang media kita pada hari ini. Bagi pihak MITI, kami mengucapkan ribuan.
Itu